The Authors Forum exists to inspire success. We will talk with authors and others in the publishing industry to bring you essentials and advice. Dr. Veronica Esagui is your host for Authors Forum.
Welcome to the Authors Forum. I'm your host, Dr. Veronica Esagui, and my guest today is Carol Palo with My Life as a Metal Sculpture, Navigating Through Medical Adversity. Welcome to our
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Nice to see you too. So, why such a title for those that pick up the book and says, My Life as a Metal Sculpture, Navigating Through Medical Adversity? What's it about, in a summary?
What the book is about is, when I went to the doctor's office, and we all go ever so often, I expected to hear that my aches and pains were the result of not exercising enough, maybe getting a little bit older. But I wound up sitting in my car after the doctor's visit, having heard just incomprehensible, scary information. The prognosis was daunting, nothing I had expected, and I didn't know what to do at that point in time. What it turned out to be for me is my spine was rotating and shoving my ribcage into my pelvis. The title for the book first came to my mind when I was looking at the MRI of my spine. And the spine is really a beautiful thing. It's slightly curved, it's lyrical, it's beautiful, and mine was in a terrible state. But from the minute I really looked at it with a certain amount of compassionate interest on the MRI, I thought of it as sort of a sculpture. And I started thinking of the doctor as the sculptor who was going to recreate this for me so that hopefully it would become functional again. So it seemed like a natural title to think of myself as a metal sculpture because, in fact, my back is largely made out of metal anymore. And then the navigating through the medical adversity is really what the book is about, not just people who have had back problems, but pretty much anyone who's suddenly faced with a medical situation that was unwanted and frightening.
And in the first, as you open the book cover, you've written beautiful titanium, bone and protein mass, nerves severed and reconnected, abstract but functional art, relieving me of pain, giving me the ability to live life anew. That is real beauty. Did you write that before or after the surgery?
I wrote that after the surgery. I wrote that because I got a lot of questions like you just asked me, why the title of the book, and why would you think of your back as a sculpture, and what would be beautiful about it? And I was trying to find some simple format. So that's my version of a poem. I don't know if anybody else would call it that, but that's my poem.
Are you this awesome, positive person with everything that goes on in your life?
Kind of obnoxiously so, yes. Pretty much. I tend to be the person who's assuming things are going to go well. And that's great when they do. A little bit difficult when they're not so prepared for that sort of thing. But I've learned.
Where did you learn that?
I think because I'd learned a little bit about meditation, not much, but just a little bit, just enough to know that when I don't know what to do, it's best to just pause, wait for maybe an intuitive thought to come. Sometimes it'll be something I've learned in the past. Sometimes it's just a good thought. And that's really what happened to me after I sat in the car long enough and started to drive home, trying to make sense of what's happened and what does it mean and what should I do now and how do I feel. And then the book steps you through what I did that seemed to work well. And once I got back on my feet again and started talking to people about it, I was sort of stunned. When you do something, I just assume everybody does the same thing, and I realized that so many people were so unprepared to talk about it within their family, to know what to ask their doctor, to know what to expect of themselves. And so it seemed like I should put my experiences and those things that I did in a book that would be helpful, I hope.
And you probably became more aware of the ones that needed help with something like what you were going through, correct?
Well, yes, I had been working at the time, and when I first started back to work on a part-time basis, and everywhere I went, I was in this incredible, huge, bulky back brace with the neck thing. It was quite clear it's something extreme was going on with me. And then eventually it came off, and I was moving and doing things, and people asked. People knew that something severe had happened to me, and as they or their loved ones were going through difficult situations, they approached me.
So for those that, like myself, would fall apart if I heard what you heard at the doctor's office, and instead you put it all into more of a positive energy in teaching people how to cope with it, you not only wrote the book, My Life as a Metal Sculpture, Navigating Through Medical Adversity, you also have a workbook.
Yes, I do.
And can you tell us more about the workbook and give us some examples from it? How does it work for the average person that gets the bad news?
Oh, well, I'd be glad to. First of all, the book itself, it's written in 3 parts. So the first is essentially my story, because I think a lot of people relate to a narrative. Pretty much everything is in the narrative, basically.
So you talk about before?
Yes, from the moment I sat in the car going, I don't even know what I feel, let alone what I should do next, right up until I was back at work and being productive and had sort of reclaimed myself again. And in the second part, because very few of us live in a cave, we impact all those people around us, whether it's at work or at church or in our neighborhood or our families. And so that has comments and ideas and tips from family members, etc. And then I have a few short stories of people who had their own medical adversity that was not connected to their backs because other things happened to people. The third part is resources. And when it came to the resources, in talking to people, realized that some people like the idea of the resources, the questionnaires, the ways to sort of dialogue with their families, but felt it was a little bit daunting. And so I thought I would take some of the information from that third part of the book, the second part of the book, and add a few other things, and create a workbook that could work in conjunction with the book or just a standalone.
So are these being offered at medical to their patients?
Yes, they are currently being offered at OHSU in their spinal orthopedic department, and hopefully other hospitals, pain clinics will take them as well. To give you a better idea of what's in this medical adversity workbook, I'll just read you the cover of it and then give you a couple of samples. So the cover of it says, Navigating Through Medical Adversity, the workbook. This is just no frills. This is the workbook. You're expected to write on the back, on the margins. It's a workbook. It starts with, how can this be happening to me? How do I help my husband, wife, relative, employee deal with this sudden turn of events? What can be done to make sense of this and know what to do next? I feel overwhelmed with fear, anger, and confusion. Whether you are the one going through the medical problem or are a concerned family member, this workbook will step you through a process that helps you gain knowledge of your strengths, concerns, and priorities, shows you ways to gain information to make the most informed decisions, assists in coming to terms with the real choices, consequences, and options available, provides tips on how to deal with many of the situations that will come up, suggests a variety of ways to become emotionally and mentally stronger as you go forward, and creates, I think this is maybe the most important, creates opportunities for helpful dialogues and collaboration between family members, the medical teams, and all concerned parties. The book has categories such as sorting out facts and emotions, starting with what I did. I went to work the next day and I couldn't function. I just couldn't even think, and so I took a day off, and I went up to the Rose Garden here in Portland, and came up with some lists, such as, what are my fears? And I listed some of them, like, will I lose my job? Will my insurance cover my needs? What positive resources do I have? What are the positives about my situation? And then this just little tips, like I don't want to be treated like I'm just a body part. And then some tips on how to avoid having that happen. Sort of checking out the process of your journey. Methods of relieving stress prior to surgery, physical, mental, and emotional. Talking about if you have insurance or if you don't have insurance, some tips on what you can do. Questions to ask prior to surgery. Questions to ask after surgery. Then there's a small section in here also for family and friends, and another one for the medical teams and clergy. And there's in the back, I have some visualization techniques that people can try. I found it to be very helpful for myself. It's amazing how open I became as I got desperate. I tried a lot of different things that I might never have thought of. So essentially that's what this workbook is.
Did anyone inspire you towards this type of putting it all down on paper, or you took it all upon yourself?
I felt a real need and a desire to take my experiences and help other people with it. There's something about it that I know sort of validates, or it's enough that I've made it through it to a certain degree, but it makes me feel that both personally and in terms of my experience has greater value if I can share that and help other people. So I just very much have wanted to do it. If I won the lottery, I would just give these away to everybody. That's not the case, but I would, because I would want everyone to at least be able to make that decision as to whether they want to get some assistance from these. And then I also offer workshops.
Oh,
people can do this individually, or I can do workshops for small groups or families.
Where's that?
Really in terms of facilitating. That's in the process of getting set up, and I would encourage people to get in touch with me.
Okay, how do they get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with me on mylifeasametalsculpture.blogspot.com.
So that's the name of your blog. Can you say that again?
mylifeasametalsculpture.blogspot.com. I'm also on Facebook under Carol R. Palo.
Palo.
So those are two ways to get a hold of me. I would welcome a conversation or questions, or if anyone would like to do the workshop.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. You got enough experience, definitely, to help a lot of people. They're going to be following the same process that you went through.
Well, I hope so. And really, just as a facilitator, I'm not a doctor. I only have my own experiences to share with people.
And you know, as I hear more about it, would you say that it's not just for someone that has a surgery like you had to correct your spinal problems that were going on, but it could be for a different purpose, for a different type of surgery?
Well, yes.
Okay.
One of the stories in there refers to a gentleman who was just riding his motorcycle down the freeway, and a truck came at it head on, and there was no way to avoid it, and woke up in the hospital. And sort of the story of how that went. There's another gentleman in the book who was getting worn out more and more, so just mowing his lawn, and thought he was just going to the doctors to get a better prescription, and wound up with open heart surgery within a couple of days. And a lady who really disliked going to doctors and had pneumonia, and the doctor said, come back and let's check it in a few months. And she said normally she wouldn't have done it. She felt better, but this time she went and found she had stage 4 lung cancer. So, and you know, it doesn't even have to be those really life and death sorts of things. It could be something as simple as these days, as though it were simple, but like a knee replacement or a hip replacement. So many of them get done and successfully that people just assume, oh, it's just that. And yet people can come home without any clear-cut idea of, I realize suddenly I can't make it up my stairs to my bed. You know, what do I do now? I had expectations of being able to go back to work and drive back and forth. Just knowing what are reasonable expectations within my family, within my work, what should I tell people? How do I deal with situations? And I think even people who everything goes well, but they're going through a prolonged periods of testings and all the uncertainty. So there's a lot of material, both in the book and in the workbook, I think that are helpful just for one's peace of mind. And I think the less stress that you have, the more energy is left to deal with the things a person can do. And you're actually helping not only the ones that are going through the crisis of having major surgery, but also their family and their friends. There was something here, and I marked it on page 12. Yes, it says, what I wrote was, it seemed strange that both the doctors and many friends seemed surprised I had so many questions and that I was taking a very detailed approach to the situation. But to me, it was the most obvious thing to do. We were talking about my life. I don't know what else I have that is more valuable than that. What would I be giving up to spend time coming to terms with this change in the direction of my life? Watching television, working overtime? And you know, and I put that in the book because it was sort of a gentle way for me to say, wake up.
Mm-hmm.
This is what was really happening to me in my life. And if I didn't ask the questions or take a stance or make informed decisions, my life would just sort of wander off wherever it went. There may be people who are comfortable with that, and so be it. But I wanted to have some say in what was going to happen to me. For me, in a way, it was easier because my choices were either to eventually have that surgery, find something that was unknown to me, or as the doctor projected, wind up in a wheelchair, in extreme pain, in assisted living, on heavy drugs within 5 years. Wow. So that is not, I wasn't willing to let that happen, although I played around with the idea, maybe I should be like the willow, maybe that's what I'm meant to be, maybe that's what I'm supposed to do, but no, I couldn't do that, not willingly. So
the surgery was from where to where? To what?
It was from my armpits through my tailbone,
mm-hmm.
and so my back today is sort of amalgamation of titanium and bones from my pelvis and cadaver and protein. It's a little bit of everything, mm-hmm. but it's all bolted in place and it holds me up just fine. And I've learned a lot of compassion from it. It started with developing a real compassion for my back, mm-hmm. For how hard, appreciation for how hard my body really works to try and accommodate me. Sometimes I get the back edge of that. It works real hard, and then it doesn't so well, and I have to pay for that. But my body wants to accommodate me in every possible way, and even today, because I'm getting more flexible. 8 years later, I'm still finding little things. I was thinking, I have to have a sense of humor helps. I was thinking the other day, I'd bought this really great pair of sneakers, and I'm tying them up, and I realized, I'm turning 70, and I can tie my shoes now. But 2 years ago, I couldn't. I couldn't tie my shoes. I couldn't quite get at the right angle mm-hmm. to do that, and I can do that now. So
I was just going to say how long it took you to recover from the surgery, but it looks like you're recovering it little by little, more and more each time.
Yeah, little bits and pieces, mm-hmm. but it took me a year before I was able to be back at work full time.
Wow. So what is, and I think from so far we've spoken, most people have an idea, but what is your essential message of my life as a metal sculpture?
I think the essential message would be visualize that you're part of the team. Your body, whatever it's going through, is a part of the team. It wants to keep you well and strong and healthy. Your medical people are part of that team, your family, your friends, any kind mm-hmm. of a spiritual or thought that you have, it's all part of this team, but you're kind of the captain of the team because it's happening to you. What do you want to do? It's really, I thought of it for myself, it's up to me because I'm the one that's going to live with the consequences right. in a much deeper way than anybody else.
And you really took your time before you decided to have the surgery. As you read through yes. the book, you go through a lot of questioning and
yes, I went through a lot. I went through several doctors and tried pretty much everything I could. I did mm-hmm. not want to have the surgery.
On page 77, would you be so kind, because it tells you the reason more in depth as to why you've written this book, I feel. Okay.
My life as a metal sculptor was written to be of assistance to others with medical situations, not meant to be just the telling of my story. Unfortunately, my situation is not unique, but only one of many stories about unexpected life situations. My experience has to do with a twisted spine, so that's what I wrote about. But I think much of what made up this journey is transferable to many medical difficulties. Regardless of the medical trauma, the impact affects both patients and everyone in their circle. It wouldn't be who I am, and my story would be vastly different without the assistance of family and friends. An accounting of my journey wouldn't be complete without their perspective, comments, and remembrances.
Who was the most inspiring person to you while you went through that?
Well,
Did you have anyone?
That's an interesting question. I think you could ask me on several different days and maybe get several different answers. But today what I'm thinking is the doctor who who performed my surgery. He took my visits every time I came, and every time I came a lot, and I had lots of questions, and he always answered every single one of them. He gave me the confidence to know that we together could make this work. He had a part in it as the surgeon, and I had a part in it as the patient. We both had to do our parts. He stepped me through all the things that I had concerns and cares about, and I could call him anytime. And that gave me some of the peace of mind to feel I'm going to do this and it's going to be okay no matter what. And then the fact that I have 2 adult children, those would be the next 2 people, I think, who...
Thinking about this medical doctor that you speak so highly of, would it be okay to mention his name or her name?
I'm comfortable mentioning it.
Okay. For those that may be looking for someone or for a second opinion.
Yes, Dr. Robert Hart up at OHSU.
Robert Hart, like a heart.
H-A-R-T.
Ah, okay. If you could go back in time, is there anything you would change?
The only thing I would change is letting people know a little bit more about what I was going through before I did. I felt somehow at that time I was protecting myself and other people by being really quiet about the pain and why I couldn't go places and what was going on, my workload. And it was just fear. That's how I dealt with fear. And once I hit a point where I started to talk to people, here's why I'm standoffish, here's why I'm abrupt, here's why I'm not answering your phone calls, it opened up a whole world of people who cared and people who would be supportive, and I could have availed myself of that sooner.
Where can someone get your book?
The book is available on Amazon, and it's also in the Kindle format as well. And you can just go to My Life as a Metal Sculptor, and that will come up. If you want the workbook, you need to get those through me.
I would highly recommend the workbook.
Yeah, you can get those through me again through the blog, My Life as a Metal Sculpture.blogspot.com, or just by going to Facebook, Carol R. Palo. I'd be happy to provide.
And you have lots of space, you said, for people to write.
Yeah, I specifically made the book so that there's printing on only one side of the page only, so people could write in the margins and on the back. And it's a real workbook. It's not meant to be set on a shelf. It's for people to write in and use.
I just open it, and I read very rapidly.
How fortunate for you.
No, I just read laughter uses and relaxes muscles. It takes the edge off and activates those parts of the brain that tell us we feel better. So you give a lot of in-depth advice in here. It's just not just a workbook. It's a workbook for the soul and the heart and the spirit. Anyone in this type of medical adversity would be able to get some help.
I think so. That's the intent of the book. So
yeah,
hopefully I've accomplished
very
that.
Nice. And so, and once again, you are also offering for a group meeting or for people to call
small
you?
groups or families. Be happy to get together and facilitate the meeting. Sometimes just getting everyone started.
Do you think that illness and adversity is an invitation to spiritual growth?
I think the desperation for myself, a desperation that comes from that has made me much more open to anything that would be helpful. So while I had done like a little bit of meditation, I'd tried a little visualization, just sort of like, oh, well, that's interesting. Now I was very interested in what it could do for me. Certainly anything that will provide a source of strength or energy or hope is something to look at.
Do you have any plans for another book?
Actually, I do, because I'm more than the sum of my spine or the difficulties I've been through. One of my passions is traveling, and so I was going to tell you a little bit about how I came to travel. My kids had gone off to college, and I stood in the grocery store I realized I can buy anything I want for dinner. I can afford it. It's just for one person. I don't have to worry about who likes what or who's going to have a practice or who's going to be late. And I stood there and I realized I don't know what I like for dinner anymore. And I bought a box of cereal and I went home and had my cereal for dinner and I thought I need to figure out who I am now. I'm not the same person I was.
When did that happen?
That happened when I was 49.
Okay.
And I decided I want to travel. So every year, starting with my 50th birthday, I've gone on, mostly by myself, some wild adventure around the world. And I have some incredible stories dealing with anacondas and being stranded in Morocco and all sorts of being in Greenland. And I'm going to write a travel book on travel.
That is great. I can't wait to read that.
Thank you.
That would be awesome.
I think it'll be fun to write as well.
Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our audience and viewers out there?
Yes, I guess what comes to mind is none of us knows what's going to happen, whether it's a delightful vacation or winning the lottery or getting hit by a bus. We don't know, or the people we care about. So my thought is to think of every day as a little jewel. Everyone gets their jewel in the palm of their hand every single day. And appreciate your jewel. Enjoy your day every single day. It's a gift we all get. We don't have to earn it or merit it. It's there.
Every second.
Yep.
Every second.
Yep.
It's so true. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
It's been awesome.
I've enjoyed it as well.
Good. Until the next Authors Forum, have a most inspiring week.